I got a serious question for you. What is your number one limiting belief that you're dealing with right now? Is it fear of getting started, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, scarcity money mindset? Is it comparison syndrome? I can go down a whole laundry list of different limiting beliefs that we all kind of deal with. In this interview, we interviewed Nicole Crank. She completely just crushed it on just how to sit there and handle and manage these limiting beliefs so that you can have a better year going forward in your business and in your life. So let's check out this interview with Nicole Crank.
There you go.
All right. So Nicole Crank, how are you today? Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, I'm super excited to be here. I'm a little thrown off when I was seeing double. Chris and Eric, you guys are identical twins. You look a lot alike. It's the haircut, I think, and the fact that you're both dressed in black.
It is.
Yeah, that too. The haircut, the big caterpillar eyebrows, like got the salt and pepper beards going. Like story of our life. I can't get away from this guy over here.
Yeah, he's a minute older though. He's got a little more salt in there, I'm seeing.
Yeah, you're definitely brothers.
No worries.
Low blows.
Yeah, I'll take it. But no, Nicole, thank you again. Really, I just want to start off with just expressing gratitude, saying thank you so much just for all the work that you're doing. I mean, you're doing some really, really cool things on a next level, just like platform. So much respect. I'm inspired. I got a glimpse to just hear you at our church, Elevate Life Church. Shout out to them, Pastor Keith. I mean, I was mind blown by the sermon that you gave on limiting beliefs and just how you tied theology. So thank you for your time. I know you're a busy lady. So just want to say thank you.
Well, it's my honor to be here, and I've overcome a lot in my life.
Yeah.
Because of God, the things of God, his promises. And we were talking before we started just a little bit. I'm a little bit nerdy, but my goal is to make nerdy things cool. And I really find it I'm fascinated when modern science proves ancient theological beliefs.
Yeah.
And when that stuff crashes together, I'm just like mind blown. And then to watch it work in people's lives and watch life change happen, that's absolutely everything. And so I come from a story of molestation when I was 10 years old, born in Canada, adopted in the US by my dad when I was 3. I was raped when I was 13 years old by a guy doing community service at our junior high. Let's think through that program.
Yeah.
That was not a program that was a recipe for good things. And life had failed me to that point. But then when I was 17 years old, I had been class president. We had moved. I got a new lease on life, and I ended up a pregnant unwed mother. And that's when I felt like I had failed myself. So my study on limiting beliefs, I'd love to tell you, it's just to help other people. But the research and the study I did was really a product of what God did in my own life.
Yeah.
I was able to overcome so much and then get to experience some really cool opportunities in life.
Yeah, no, and that's, thank you so much for sharing that, because that's the way I really wanted to start this show off and set the tone with, because it's number one, it's very courageous of you to share that. And I mean, it could be one listener that's going through the same thing and they have that self-doubt in them. So you've been able to turn that mess into your message and really help and inspire people. So, I want to know too, just like, why do you think that so many people, are living in these limiting beliefs? Like, why are they living in this fear, uncertainty, and doubt right now? And how do they ultimately just break past it all?
Well, the kind of sciencey part of that really is created into that theological part is 95% of the mind is actually operating on the subconscious. So what that means is even when we're not thinking, we're thinking. And our conscious mind, our cerebral cortex, is not even aware of what we're thinking about. So we don't even know what we're thinking about. So if you take that biblical, the enemy operates in darkness. Yeah. So 95% of our thinking is stuff we're not aware of. It's, if you could call it that, it's in the dark. So we need to figure out how to shine a light on that, because the way the brain works is there's all these, the gray matter and the folds, and looks like a pile of dirty laundry that really somebody needs to bleach. Those folds actually physically change. So here's the premise of the Bible. It says that the unseen can change the seen. And the actual scripture for that might be, I walk by faith and not by sight. Yep. And it says that the words of our mouth create our future in another space. How does that happen psychologically, biologically, physiologically? And the way that happens is the brain opens up every time, whenever we have a thought, we see something. there's this part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And we literally get bombarded with so many images. I mean, even pre-social media, so much information that our mind can't comprehend it all. And it starts to freak out a little bit. And so since it starts freaking out, it automatically puts these filters on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wish Zoom had a filter because I would look younger, tanner, and thinner. Right? So it starts putting these filters on. How does your brain pick its filter? Well, your brain will pick its filter. I just read the study of, golly gee, just in the past couple of weeks. Super cool study. So have you guys ever bought pantyhose?
No,
Eric did one time.
No,
I did not. I did not. No.
You did not wear pantyhose. And if you did, you're not admitting it here. Okay, got it.
I had to think about that for a second. I was like,
Yeah.
So they did this study with pantyhose, and they went out to the front of the grocery store and they got 4 identical pair of pantyhose and put them A, B, C, and D. Well, consumer marketing studies will tell you that people always choose the one on the far right. It's just what they do. Put your offer on the far right. And so they expected D to weigh in heavily. And then they were going to ask people why they chose D. So they did. People came out, which one do you like? Oh, you know what? D. I like D. Why do you like D? I don't know. The quality is just better. And that's when they would spring on them. Well, actually, all 4 are the exact same pair of pantyhose. Then people would defend their decision. And they would say, oh, no, no, I'm telling you, D is still better. Even when presented with the facts, the human brain will defend its position. So as the brain takes on a piece of information and we play with it in that dark subconscious part of our brain, it thinks about it, it plays with it, it dreams about it. You have conversations with people in the shower that you don't even know you're having for 5 minutes. All this goes on and it develops neural pathways. When you have an original thought or experience for the first time, your body expresses this protein and this protein forms a neuron. So each time you have another thought that's similar to that thought, you express another protein and that neuron grows. And these little like hairs start coming out of the neuron. And those hairs look kind of like roots. And the Bible actually says to be rooted and grounded in love, which is why we have to train our brains to love people, have empathy for people, have compassion for people. Because when we don't train them that way, we automatically get super judgmental. We fire off thoughts on social media that we regret later. We can't go back and erase them. All of that happens so quickly because we get rooted. So we have these thoughts, they start rooting, and these roots will actually grow so thick and so strong, they will pull the gray matter of the brain and physically and biologically reshape the brain. It's the unseen forming the seen, and it forms these things called neural pathways. So now we have this rut for anybody who's been stuck in a rut. How would I get in this rut? The answer to that is probably one thought at a time.
Yeah.
So how do I get in this rut? One thought at a time. And that neural pathway fires. And even if it's wrong, what will happen? People will tell you, hey, you really need to talk up in a meeting. No, I can't. Nobody likes what I say. Or the opposite. Hey, you really need to maybe give other people a chance to talk in the meeting. Nobody knows as much as I do. If I don't speak up, nothing will get done. And even when they give us facts to help us, by the way, good people don't criticize, good people coach. Right? So hopefully they're getting coached on criticism. I do a whole talk on criticism, but once you've been coached, our brain will say, they're probably wrong. I'm probably doing it right. I'm going to defend myself, even in our subconscious, which makes it harder to change, right? Everybody wants to change and lose weight, but we find it so hard. Why? Our brain is hardwired to filter out anything that's not happening right now this way. So we have to be very intentional about reprogramming our brain.
Yeah. And that's powerful too. I just want to add to that because I remember you saying what really stuck out to me. You said the first step to transformation is self-awareness.
Yes. I teach a mastermind group, and it's a 1-year journey. And on the 1-year journey, I thought, because I wrote a book on goal setting, I honestly thought, here's how this program is going to run. We're going to come in, we're going to talk about goals. We're going to set the goals. We're going to develop action plans. We're going to talk about execution. We're going to tweak these plans throughout the year. We're going to start our businesses here. We're going to take them to here. And that's going to be the trajectory of the mastermind over these immersives and these half days. And I was praying about it. And I believe it was the Lord who showed me this picture I saw in my head. And when I saw this picture in my head, I saw this like G5, G6. I saw this huge personal aircraft on the runway. And you could see the gas. The engines were firing up. And I was going to watch this thing take off. It was going to be beautiful. And then I was directed to look at the back of the plane. And when I did, on the tail of the airplane, I saw this big, huge rope tied around the tail. And I followed the rope down, and the big, huge rope was tied to this boulder that was like the size of an SUV. And I just felt the question come up in me, that plane's not going to go anywhere, is it? I was like, no. And if it tries, it's going to rip the tail off. So you can talk about losing your tail on that deal. So that's when I felt like the Lord impressed upon my heart. That's what people try to do. Everybody's trying to move forward without addressing what's been holding them back. So we have to turn around and look. We have to become self-aware. So I walk through a whole month of self-awareness and examine our limiting beliefs, identify our limiting beliefs, reprogram our limiting beliefs, and then we can do goal setting and move forward from there. Once we've cut that rope off the back, you cut the rope off the back of that airplane, it's going to take off and fly, but it's never going to fly with the boulder. And so there's a lot of people on the runway, they keep hitting in the gas and they keep crashing and burning, and they can't figure out why. And I would encourage you today, hey, every now and then, don't spend your life in the rearview mirror, because the rearview mirror is little and the windshield is big. But every now and then you got to glance in the rearview mirror and see what's back there. Is it dangerous? Am I stopped at a red light and there's a semi coming at me at 80 miles an hour? Because I need to get out of the way. So what is that thing that's behind us? How do we cut it off so we can run? I say run our race without weight or sin or anything holding us back or holding us down.
Yeah, that's good.
This is really good. I want to kind of circle back to this too. But first, I want to just, before I forget, where can the listeners and even the viewers that are watching this get your book on goal setting?
The very best place to get that would be NicoleCrank.com/goals.
Okay.
There's a video masterclass. There's a workbook, the book. It's on Audible. You can listen. I listen to that book twice a year just to refire myself back up and listen again. And then I'm the kind of person, I don't know, are you guys paper readers or Audible readers?
No, paper readers, old school here. Yep.
Paper. What about you?
I'm paper reader. I got to highlight stuff, put some tabs in there. Yep.
Yes. Do you read books you've read before?
I'm 100% better at that, because I'm a big advocate that it's better to go back and read 5 or 10 books that are just really good instead of try to read 100 different books, unless I'm going to skim through them and try to just find 1 or 2 nuggets that I can apply,
Yeah. I go back and read the highlights.
Yeah.
What's your top 2 books, if you could just name off the top of your head?
Oh, you have to pick the subject on what my top 2 books are. I read a devotional book every day. I've written 2 devotional books, 2 High God books. How to talk to God about the tough stuff and what to pray when you don't know what to say. They're called High God. There's the Jesus Calling book. I love Jesus Calling just to start my day and get myself framed in thankfulness and mindfulness of the creator of the universe,
Absolutely.
Jesus, to start my day. Then when it comes to leadership, there's a guy, his name is Lance Witt, and he's written a book that a lot of people don't know about. I really love his leadership book. Then, Patrick Lencioni, the E-Myth is amazing, especially for entrepreneurs. I know you guys are big in the entrepreneurial world. I like the way Patrick Lencioni writes in fiction and nonfiction. I don't know if you've ever read The Anatomy of Peace. It's kind of written in the same way.
No, but now you're giving me a nice list to go off of that I can go research after.
Oh yeah. The Starbucks Experience was one of my favorite, but then I don't want to diss anybody. There's another book that somebody tried to write about a business, kind of like the Starbucks Experience. I didn't like it half as much.
We'll definitely have those linked up in the show notes for you guys. But Nicole, I want to go back to what you're talking about, limiting beliefs. And just right now, I guess based off of the research you've done, the books you've written, right, working with people, what would you say the biggest limiting beliefs have been you see in in the past year, and just kind of to anticipate, I guess, going into 2023? Because it's we've dealt with the pandemic, COVID, inflation, recessions coming, I guess, all this stuff. So what are the biggest limiting beliefs people can kind of anticipate, you think?
Well, let me ask you if you guys have heard the sentence. Well, since COVID, the world's changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's people's biggest limiting belief right now. That since COVID, which is a whole thing, it's a negative thing in people's minds. And when I say COVID, automatically parts of the brain go locked in my house. scarcity mentality, fear. Am I going to be sick? So it fires off nothing positive, and the brain is going to defend its right to think negative of COVID, which is okay, but we need to move past the negative of the past so that we can go to the future. And then the world has changed, and then we have this question mark. And the limiting belief is the question mark that comes after that. Since COVID, the world has changed. We don't know how to do business in this environment. Since COVID, people don't go to retail stores. Since COVID, and now we're in a recession. Since COVID, the transportation system doesn't work the same. Since COVID, I don't know if I can get vaccine, don't get vaccine, get boosted every 12 months, don't get boosted every 3 months. People have all these question marks. So they have trepidation and fear. So I would say a huge limiting belief is fear. They don't know what to do. And so when people don't know what to do, they don't do anything. And here's the problem with that. Doing nothing is doing something. We've chosen to do nothing instead of make progress. Do nothing because we're observing and we're watching the world to see what's going to happen. Do nothing. But when we do nothing, we make no progress. Mm-hmm. So we have to decide to do something. And then in my goal setting book, the very first thing I do, and that's what I'm going to recommend to people right now, is the very first thing to do is pray. Just ask God, I don't know what to do, but you are an all-knowing and all-seeing being who happens to talk to humans. And since you talk to humans, I'm kind of asking you to give me a what's up right here. That there's this ancient word that keeps getting proven right by science time and time again. It says you're the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, that you can see the end of a thing from the beginning. So you know my next move.
Yep.
Could you share that with your girl? Because I sure know.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy thing. When you pray prayers like that, you'll get this random phone call. You'll get this text out of nowhere. Suddenly you'll get an email with an opportunity. And you just have to have that antenna up. Don't let your brain close off opportunities. Have that antenna up and go, I think I smell something happening in this world after COVID, and I think it could be good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And it's simple to do too, but it's very hard for people to sit there and pray and be kind of vulnerable to that. I don't know where people's faiths are with everything, but, obviously we're believers, but I think it's powerful because even I've caught myself, at times this year where it's like business wasn't good in certain seasons. And I just be on my hands and knees, just praying to God as well too. God, give me some breakthroughs, give me some clarity, just stir me in the direction where you want me to use my gifts and talents, and it's boom, like you said, an email, an opportunity came up, a connection with somebody locally, so I think it's super powerful about just kind of putting something out there, especially to God. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a law. Anything you dwell upon grows in your reality. That's a psychological law. That's a biological law. That's how the neurons, the proteins start expressed, the neurons grow, the roots are formed, how the brain works. Anything you dwell upon grows in your reality. So if you dwell upon what we can't do because the world is different, what we can't do because COVID happened, that will grow in our reality. And we can't control our situations, but we can control our thoughts.
Yeah.
So we 100%. Have to identify those thoughts. And that's the FAR program that I taught. In the talk that you guys heard, I taught the FAR program. And you have to find your flawed thinking. You have to address your flawed thinking, and then you have to be intentional to reprogram your flawed thinking. Your thinking will not change without intention.
Yeah.
So you have to get intentional about your thinking, but you can't get intentional about it until you find it and find what are the thought patterns that keep putting me in the same place over and over again.
Yeah. And that's just kind of like what you said, right? Just look back in the rear view mirror. Yeah,
exactly. And people are scared to do that.
Of course.
And people, self-awareness wanes, I think, because looking in the mirror is scary and everybody's afraid. Let me ask you this. Do you ever find yourself in a situation, a meeting, doing this podcast or something, and you ask yourself, or you think in your heart, you're like, I don't even really know if I'm qualified to do this right now?
Absolutely. That's imposter syndrome to me. Yeah.
Every human has that moment. I don't really know if I'm qualified to be here right now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us have it a lot. like, how did I get here? I lived a third of my life on a gravel road. Have you seen my past? How do I have a TV show? How am I a best-selling author? I don't understand. The math doesn't add up. I'm not qualified. I'm afraid somebody's going to find out I'm a sham because we don't know how we got this opportunity. Well, that's the problem with self-awareness. We're afraid if we look at ourselves, we'll realize that in and of ourselves, we might not, quote unquote, be good enough to be here.
Yeah.
All right, just give me 1 second. We'll get back to the training. Okay. Now, look, if you are looking to enhance your content, if you're looking to really build what we call a content machine, okay, we have this awesome worksheet for you. So just check out the link below and you guys can download this awesome worksheet where there's like 3 or 4 different type of like exercises in there. You guys can really roll out some brand new content for your guys' online audience, your guys' brand, your offer. Okay. Now back to the training.
And some of the worst advice I'd ever heard is I heard a really big leader say one time, in kind of a coaching scenario, the coaching, we were talking about, hey, you know, what you really need to do, let people know I make mistakes.
Yep.
Become vulnerable in front of the people that you lead. And when you become vulnerable in front of the people that you lead, empathy wells up, compassion wells up, grace wells up. And when people would have knifed you in the back before, suddenly they'll stand in front of somebody else trying to knife you in the back because you were vulnerable. So there was a break and one of the CEOs came up and was talking about, said, hey, you know, we just need to talk about the fact that you can't coach people to tell their mistakes. When you're a leader, you can't let people see you sweat. They need to know that you have your act together.
Yeah.
And then a person was there and they said, here's the problem. Everybody already knows you make mistakes.
Yeah.
They just don't know that you know you make mistakes.
Exactly.
And so and when we go to the bathroom, it stinks for everybody. You know it, I know it, they know it. So when we can admit it, quit it, and forget it, we use the vulnerability, and then suddenly the people that are following us give us grace for our mistakes. And we say, you know, I think there might have been a better way to do that, and I didn't do it best. Do you guys have an idea for next time? And then they get sold out, bought in, and they become much happier followers and people that can come with you.
Yeah, that's powerful. I love that. And then you said, admit it, forget it, and quit it, or how it had to
admit it. Oh my gosh, I lost my cool in that meeting, you guys. I lost it. I don't know if I had too much coffee, not enough coffee, or not enough sleep, but I lost it. You know, I am so sorry. Well, you admitted it. Now you got to quit it, right?
Yep.
So you go into the next meeting, you know, you can't lose your cool in the next meeting because you just lost your cool in the last meeting. And then if you live in regret will form a neural pathway as you play the situation where you screwed up over and over again in the back of your mind. Now, what are you doing? You're actually weaving a path for you to screw up again in the same way, because in your subconscious, you're playing it over and over again so that you blow your top in the next meeting. You wonder, why did I do that? I said I was never going to do that again. You were busy regretting it. Yeah. Living in regret formed those neural pathways, and now you fell right back into that rut. We have to literally let it go. Give ourselves the grace to actually, I don't know, be human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also too, Nicole, like what else are some kind of like tangible steps people can do? Like you gave us one of them that you said, right, to where somebody can literally like pray to God, right? What's some other tangible steps people can do to kind of break these like neural pathways that get formed, you know, from trauma, from, you know, self-limiting beliefs, from self-doubt, all those type of things?
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked about find, address, and reprogram. Let's just dive into that just a little bit further. If we're going to find a limiting belief, we have to go looking for it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to jump out. It's not going to just appear. And the way we can track it down is what I call situations happen, right? So we have a situation that happens, and then we have thoughts. So as soon as something happens, loud noise, what was that? Right? Mm-hmm. Automatically we're responding. And actually our thoughts, here's the tricky thing. Our thoughts sometimes respond second. Now, so as you're looking for limiting beliefs, your limiting beliefs will fire off first, and you might even be in an emotional state before you start thinking. Let me explain that real quick. As you're looking for limiting beliefs, a loud noise happens. What happens? The amygdala part of your brain responds. What is that? That's the fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. It's the thing that saves your life. It's anxiety. You get anxiety every day, and that's okay. Just as long as we don't live in hypervigilance or a continual anxious state. Anxiety is actually a good thing. It's created to save our lives. So boom, something happens. The amygdala fires off before the cerebral cortex, and it actually floods us with different chemicals, maybe serotonin or dopamine, different things are released. And so our cerebral cortex, once it finally catches up and starts thinking, all these things have already been dumped into our body by the amygdala. So the way we start thinking about it has already been framed by the neural pathways that are formed in our amygdala. So we scream. Why? Because last time something like that happened, it was traumatic and we screamed. We start running because last time we were at 9/11, we heard noises like that and we ran. So all of those things start firing off. So you have a situation, you have a thought. Your thought can actually be not your real thought, but how your neural pathways operate. When you think about things, because there's two types of thought, there's default thought,
Yeah,
and deliberate thought.
yeah. I remember that's what you were mentioning. I remember now.
So that's that default thought comes from the amygdala. The deliberate thought is, okay, what just happened? Before I scream, before I run, before I get mad, before I get hurt, before you said something bad against me. Oh, okay. The claws are coming out. I'm coming after you. Before you respond like that, think about it. Consciously think, because thoughts lead to emotions, right?
Yeah.
You said that about me. You have no right. I'm going to go ahead and get you. Then we start responding because we have emotions. So we have a situation, thought, emotion, and a behavior. And it's how we behave. If we can back it up to our thought process, think, why am I having those thoughts? How am I having those thoughts? If we can, it sounds dumb, but if we can take a deep breath, okay, they just came at me. Whew, what am I going to do about this? How should I react to this? And instead of like the talk I did a talk yesterday on criticism. A lot of times when people are criticized, they immediately get defensive,
Sure.
mad. So now instead of hearing and getting better, because criticism isn't always right, but it can always be learned from if it's right or not. So even though they might have given you a criticism and it's not right, instead of reacting, defending, creating an enemy, you can listen, you can absorb the information, you can thank the person for giving it to you. You can see whether or not it resonates, and then you can check it with a second source that you trust.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris over here told me, Eric, that green is not my color. And I really liked this outfit. So I wore it today on purpose. Eric, what do you think? Because I trust your opinion. Eric's like, no, you look great in green. I'm like, yeah, I thought Chris was an idiot. No, not those words, though. I'm just being funny.
That's interesting that you talk about that with criticism, though, because that's something too. Like I've caught myself where I'm like, look, I'm not going to say that I'm going to give somebody constructive criticism. Like, let's just say I'm talking to one of my assistants or something like that, right? Instead, I'll say that I'm going to give you feedback. And it seems like they're more receptive to hearing the feedback instead of criticism, because like automatically their brain thinks like, oh man, the criticism, it's negative. I did something bad. I messed up,
Mm-hmm.
The way that I talk about it is say I never give anybody a criticism. I give them coaching.
Yeah,
it's good too.
It's good too.
And if I lean back to the ancient scriptures say, speak the truth in love. So I don't ever come at them because of me. I come at them because of them. How can I help them? And that's the thing we have to realize. A lot of times, now there's haters out there. Forget everybody on social media. Forget haters. Forget people without a face. I'm talking about somebody mustered up the bravery to come and tell you something that they know you don't want to hear, but they're leveraging their relationship with you and taking a risk and being vulnerable to tell you something. Yeah. So since they're going through all of that, and if we're going to do that, one, we approach people and we tell them the truth, but we tell them the truth in love. And number two, there's another thing from the ancient scriptures, and it says, do not judge. Do not criticize. So we don't have the right to criticize them. We coach them, and do not condemn. So as long as we're not criticizing, we're coaching. As long as we're doing it in love and not for personal gain, then we know we have the right heart attitude that we're actually going to speak into somebody for their betterment. And when we come postured like that, they're probably going to receive it and actually get better.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I try to do with this guy over here. I try to speak from a place from love. But I want to ask too, Nicole. I mean, it's like it's crazy because you have so many things going on. I'm like, how does this woman juggle all this? And it's like, what I know we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. Like, you feel like, oh man, like am I qualified to do all this? So, like, how do you balance this all out? I kind of don't even like that word balance, but how do you keep all this together and keep it flowing?
No, it's a facade.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think it's balance. I think it's a rhythm.
Yeah.
I take one day off a week. It's Friday, and I have to work really hard not to let Friday be the day that I work on the things that I can't work on when I'm busy.
Mm-hmm.
So having that rhythm of rest where I don't catch up on email. I don't start writing another book. I don't start writing content for my next talk. I really do try and rest one day a week, try to stay fresh. I'm not really good at it, especially that's kind of the rhythm of my world, but I do a lot of conference speaking on Friday. So if I speak at a conference on a Friday, I have to find that day somewhere else.
Yeah.
So when I don't rest, I can tell. And then I did like 6 hours of TV yesterday, probably 4 hours of TV today. I was coming on with you guys, and I lead a group. I have a circle of friends group. I do a Zoom call with them once a month. And tonight we're doing goal setting. I have to be honest, we're pre-recording this. It's, that call is 2.5 hours from now, and I haven't started yet. I feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
But here's what I know. It's not the studying today that's going to make a difference. Have I spent my life preparing for this moment? Yes.
Yep.
So does that excuse me from preparing? No. As soon as I get finished with this podcast, I'm going to go on to the next thing. I'm going to be diligent. I'm going to plan, because if you don't plan to succeed, you plan to fail automatically.
Right.
So I'm going to get prepared, and I'm going to do the next thing. And then I really just think about the next thing. Like tomorrow, I have other things, but I'm not in tomorrow yet. Now I am a planner. I will know what tomorrow holds. Actually, my assistants in the morning, they will text me what's happening today and what time, all my links, and then they'll text me what's happening tomorrow. So I know today what's happening tomorrow. And before the night ends tonight, I'll know tonight what's happening tomorrow.
Yep.
And the next day. Yeah. That way, if there is something I need to do today for tomorrow, before I go to bed, I'll finish my everything for today, and I'll look at my tomorrow. It's already there waiting for me. And that way, if I have some study, if I have to pull some notes, if I have to listen to an audio book while I go, I'm going to call it jogging, but let's be honest, it's a very medium walk. I'll pop in my ear pods and I'll start filling myself back up again. And so if that's one encouragement I can give to your listeners, number one, well done. You have tuned into a podcast that is feeding your soul. It's feeding your mind. It's feeding your business. It's making you better. And you will be better when you listen to content like this. So you're already on the right road. Number two, do more of that.
Amen.
Get it in you. And when you get squeezed, whatever is in you will come out of you.
Yeah.
So whenever you have that situation, those thoughts, emotion, that behavior that comes out at the end, it's going to come out because of what you have put in you.
Yeah. Amen. Beautifully said. So Nicole, I want to ask you a deep question here. If you had 5 years to live, what would you stop doing?
Wow.
Ooh,
that's a hard one. Because I love so much.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 things you can do with time. You can waste your time, right? Mm-hmm. That's time spent doing really stupid stuff. It's getting mad at people. It's walking around offended. It's walking around in regret. It's doing all the stupid things. So I would identify my time wasters, and I would decide I'm going to identify these suckers, and nothing's going to be a time waster for me. The second thing you can do with time is spend it like currency, right? You only have so much of it. Don't want to waste it. Spend it. Spending time is doing laundry, doing dishes, washing the car, getting things fixed. I would hire people to do all that and let the people who live after me pay for it. And the third thing you can do with time is invest it.
Yeah. So
I would try and get rid of my time wasters and my time spenders. And I would look at how would I want to invest that time? I would want to invest that time with my family, with the people I love. And I would start really investing in those relationships.
Love that.
I would say, Nicole, like if there was a water bottle there, just pour it like on the mic or whatever you're like talking to. You're on fire.
That's good though. I like that.
You guys are pulling me up. I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now.
That was really good. That's the first time I've actually heard those kind of like 3 things you can do with time.
Likewise.
That was really, really good.
Thank you. That came out of my prayer time one morning. Yeah. God was redirecting where I was spending my time. I was obviously wasting some time. He's like, girl, we got to get you on the right road. You're in the wrong space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to ask you, Nicole, just, like Eric said in the beginning, you're doing a lot of amazing things, right? You've written a couple of books, you're doing sermons, you're doing conferences, right? I'm sure you're doing a lot of traveling. I mean, what's really next for you? Like, I would say even just emphasizing on 2023, like what's next for Nicole Crank?
This was the first year I started the mastermind group. And it has been so much fun because I've watched some people who, even though we're actually, the group starts in August, And we set our goals in January. And yet the life change, watching people turn around, watching one woman runs an organization. It's a great organization. It's a big organization. It's a powerful organization. And she didn't feel like she was leading right. And she started doubting her own leadership. We haven't even gotten to goal setting yet. And she came to me and she said, I am myself again. I am back in the office. I am alive. I am leading. And I know I'm doing it right. I've got the confidence that I need to get us back on track. And so we haven't even gone into goal setting yet, which we're doing for 2023 in our next 3-day immersive. But she's already a completely different person. And so watching that kind of life change and a front row seat, that is the coolest thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, we're coming towards the end of this podcast. I would love to just, continue chatting it up, but I know you have, places to be, people to help and stuff and impact. But before I ask the last question, I want to just take a moment to acknowledge you and just again, say thank you again for your time. I do respect people's time. I know how busy you are. Very, very giving of you to come on this podcast, serve our audience, deliver this wisdom, and just, continue doing all the stuff, all the things that you're doing. You are changing lives, you're impacting lives, and I know God will continue to bless you, your family, and just give you more fruit. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That means a lot. And I believe in what you guys are doing. You're smart. I look at your guest list. The people who came on would not come on if you guys weren't doing something that mattered.
Thank you.
So you are doing something that matters. So even when it gets tough, even when you fight with each other, keep doing it because what you do matters.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So what is your definition of living a dynamic life?
It's easy when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a business builder, to get your success feelings from business, from hitting business goals. So a dynamic life to me is not a life that looks like a piece of pie. It's a life that looks like the whole pie. So living a dynamic life to me, because I've met and worked with a lot of very successful people. And when you look at them, it looks like their act and everything else is together. They're not living on the cream. They're living on the cream of the cream. It's amazing. And then you get to know them and you find out where they're hurting. They're usually hurting in relationship and family. They're on their third marriage. They carry 3 phones because they have 3 girlfriends. I mean, all of these things because they don't know how to relate to people because they've been so focused on business. And the problem is when it comes time for retirement, they have no idea what to do with their life. So to me, living a dynamic life is looking around in 360. Is my family strong? Is my marriage strong? Is my relationship with God strong? Is my relationship with friends strong? Is my relationship with my business strong? And if I can look all the way around, then I feel like I have a dynamic life.
Yeah.
Very, very, very well said. So, 100%. So where can the listeners go follow all the great work you're doing and just anything in particular we can support you on?
Yeah. And the 2 books too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, hit me up on TikTok or Insta or Facebook. Nicole Crank on Facebook and Instagram, Real Nicole Crank on TikTok. My website's Nicole Crank. I have a goals book. If you're goal setting for this year, it is the psychology and the theology along with scientific proof. It's a 5-step program. It is elementary and super simple. And I help you be faithful to the program to walk through the 5 steps. It's scientifically proven to work. So many studies that I've done. And that's what I'm talking about tonight is like the endowment effect and those different things that just keep you going and the why behind the human behavior of reaching your goals. And then I have a book that tells my story about the things that I have walked through. It talks about the things that have triggered. I forgot to tell you the part where when I finally got married and my son was 5, I married a guy with great medical initials after his last name, thought I was financially secure. He gets addicted to prescription medicine that turns into cocaine, that turns into crack cocaine, herniates my C7, breaks my ribs. All these terrible things happen. And I had to walk through post-traumatic stress. And there were these triggers, these things would trigger it. So I've been bankrupt. I've been foreclosed on. I've had restraining orders against this guy. So I've walked through a lot. So I identify people, I meet them where they're at, and I bring them from the pain to the promise in a real, raw, and organic way. And that book is called I Will Thrive. You can get any of those books on my website. And I just pray that if you're in a tough spot today, know this. Tough things happen, but they don't last. Whatever you do, don't give up and just keep on going and you will walk through this.
100%.
Love it. Well, thank you. Thank you again, Nicole. We'll have all that linked up in the show notes, guys. Go follow Nicole. She's the real deal. She's, making some crazy, crazy impact in the world. But once again, thank you so much for your time, Nicole. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
All right, hopefully you enjoyed that interview with Nicole Crank on how to really kind of just destroy those limiting beliefs that's holding you back from your true God-given potential in your business and in your life. Next thing I want you to do is I want you to watch this interview we did with the one and only Jasmine Star. So Jasmine Star has a great, great story. She actually empowers entrepreneurs to help them build their personal brands through her social media and everything else she kind of teaches. So now that you kind of destroy those limiting beliefs, and if you want to get your brand, your story out there, I highly recommend watching this interview with Jasmine Star to get yourself out there and get your voice out there.